course, unbeaten in 2021. He leads the championship. He's also been a Rookies Cup regular this season. He won on his debut in Mugello and finished 11th overall.
Yeah, he was really impressive in Sachsenring as well, and another couple of races. That's why we're going to see him in the World Championship next year.
Third row of the grid, here is Fadila Aditama, the first of the Indonesian riders on the grid. He's been a regular top 10 runner in his rookie campaign. He's also retired from 3 of the 4 races, so only 8 points on the board to date.
Yeah, it is his first season in Asian Talent Cup action, but the home crowd certainly have a leading rider to cheer on in this race.
Yes, one of the best rising talents from Indonesia at present. He's been rewarded with a place in the Rookies Cup for the 2022 season, so he's already planning his next step on the road to MotoGP. Alongside him on the third row of the grid will be Hakum Denish and also Raykat Fadila. Further back down the order, the likes of Herjan Firdaus and also Sharil Sharil and Azran Deo, who complete the fourth row. Also, watch out for Rei Wakamatsu, who's starting down in P18. He's had 2 fourth places in the opening 2 rounds. He's 8th in the championship and already on double the number of points he managed in his rookie 2019 season. So he's one of the few riders a little bit out of a position after qualifying, but don't be too surprised to see plenty of position changes right from the start in this class in particular. We expect to see that classic pack racing. The main question is whether Furusato can continue to show the kind of pace that he has been able to show throughout this 2021 Asia Talent Cup so far. Of course, a long time ago now.
Yeah, it is a long time since the opening rounds of the year in Qatar, but at least for Furusato, he has been busy with his Red Bull Rookies performances as well. But a big task for him from that second row of the grid to maintain that 100% record.
Steve, this is now the 8th season of the Asia Talent Cup. 7th full season, of course, because we lost most of 2020. And no less than 6 Asia Talent Cup graduates were Moto3 regulars over the course of this season. 2 of them have already moved up as far as Moto2. This is a good production line.
It is interesting with the Asia Talent Cup, a lot like the other Talent Cups as well. The first year, whenever you start these championships, there's always maybe 1 or 2 riders that look like they're going to be able to make that step. In Asia Talent Cup, was Kaito Toba was the inaugural champion back in 2014. Of course, he's a Grand Prix winner since then. Then as the years progressed, we saw more and more quality riders coming through. If you think back to right about 2017, that's when Dennis Onchu came on the scene in Asia Talent Cup, Chan Onchu as well. Of course, both of them able to have good results in the Grand Prix paddock and the Super Sport paddock in particular for Chan Onchu. We've seen Dennis Onchu on the podium in Grand Prix classes. Of course, Chan was able to win a Grand Prix as well on his debut. It does show that the Asia Talent Cup can help you find some talent and then nurture it onto the top stage.
A quick mention for anyone watching from back in Europe, a couple of riders who might be considered familiar faces. Mentioned Hakim Denish. He joined the European Talent Cup back in June. In fact, he's done most of his riding this summer over in Europe, so he will be a familiar face. And another, Sharil Sharil, who managed to get in 2 European Talent Cup seasons during the curtailment, effectively, of the 2020 Asia Talent Cup. So a couple of familiar faces for those of you based back in Europe.
Yeah, and certainly it is interesting whenever we see some of the Asia Talent Cup riders move across to race in the European Talent Cup as well. It does show that for these riders, there's opportunities to be able to show their talents. Obviously, for a lot of these Asian riders, they want to get the chance to go race in Europe. The CEV paddock, obviously, a real opportunity for them to make a name for themselves. We've seen that in the last few years, even with the likes of Sho Nishimura, who won the championship back in 2019, and Billy Van Erde as well. He's been able to race in the European Championships and in the CEV Moto3 Junior World Championship, and indeed we even saw him in World Supersport this year as well.
And as far as the World Championship is concerned, it's very much Taiyo Furusato who's the rider to watch for the future. He's set for his debut in the Moto3 World Championship with Honda Team Asia in 2022.
Yeah, certainly for Honda Team Asia, we've been able to see them bring through quite a few riders over the years, and there's a lot of pressure on Furusato to be able to really make that step. Obviously, we've seen Asian riders, Japanese riders over the last few years have good success. You think to even the likes of Sasaki, of course, as well, a former champion in the Asian Talent Cup and a regular in the Moto3 World Championship. This is the proving ground for riders from this region. You come from the Middle East, Asia, and down in Australia. This is where you get the opportunity to race in front of big crowds and in front of big audiences as well in terms of the paddock. And that's where when you're supporting the Grand Prix classes or World Superbikes, you can make a bit of a name for yourself.
Going back to Furusato, slightly different situation for him compared to what he's been used to in the Asia Talent Cup. This is the first time he's been kept off pole position in his 4 Asia Talent Cup appearances, including the one, of course, in 2020. So he might have to get a bit used to the old elbows, particularly in the early laps.
Yeah, the one thing is this grid, of course, is set from last week's grid positions, and they've also had another couple of practice sessions today as well.
Yes, there will be another qualifying tomorrow for what is round 4, which is Saturday afternoon's race, and Sunday's race as well. We're at the halfway mark of this 2021 season, and half of the season is taking place just in 4 days over the course of this weekend in Indonesia.
Yeah, and in this morning's practice sessions, it was Furusato that led the way by a couple of tenths of a second, so keep an eye out on the number 15 from the outside of the second row.
Furusato leads the championship, 100 points out of 100. Can he maintain that unbeaten run over the course of the Indonesian round this weekend? Lights out on race 1 of 4 at the Mandalika International Circuit. And the immediate fast start is with Daniel Sharil, the pole sitter. Will watch out for Furusato, the number 15, cutting his way to try and claim the racing line in towards turn number 1, but he's going to get squeezed up there between 2 bikes. Another tries to come round him. He jostles for position in the mid-pack, and this is exactly what we've been saying. We've got our championship leader further back down the grid than he's ever been before, and getting rather bullied in the run towards the first turn.
Yeah, able to make some progress. There was Hamada that was diving down the inside with the yellow helmet on the number 8 machine, but Furusato able to dust him aside as we came through the next couple of corners. He's up there inside the top 5. Really good start there from Daniel Sharil from the pole position, able to convert that.
Yes, Furusato fighting his way back, as you say, up into 5th position. Danish is the next rider, so the next target, as it were, for him. Hakim Danish doing a great job off the line himself and moving up into P4, but it's Daniel Sharil who leads the way. Very tight, as you'd expect, among that lead group. Just a second covering the top 10 riders, and a faller towards the second half of the group as they make their way through, and that's always one of those perils of the early laps of Asia Talent Cup. Although I have to say that the attrition hasn't been particularly high in this championship so far in 2021 over the course of the 2 weekends in Qatar. I think it might have been Hamada who we lost from that group. That's now confirmed on the screen. So Kanta Hamada who has fallen there on the right-hander.
Yeah, and easily done down in towards turn 10. We saw in the running in the free practice sessions for Superbike and Supersport as well, there's a couple of areas in this track where it does get quite tight, and turn 10, the end of the lap here as well, and turn 15, there are areas where you can easily end up collecting another rider if you make a small mistake.
Bad start to the weekend then for Kanta Hamada, who, as I said, on the grid was one of the pre-season favourites for this championship. It's going to be a first non-scoring race of the season for him. 5th in the series standings. He was also 5th position on the grid, but that's all going to be for nothing now as he goes down on the opening lap of 16. These are effectively full-length races, the kind of race distance that those of you familiar with the World SBK paddock will used to be seeing for Supersport 300 as Hamada stalks his way away from the incident. This time we get to see it, and it's exactly as I suggested, a bit of bumping and boring there in towards turn 10. Yeah,
and it looks like he just might have gotten a bit of a punt from behind and helped into that exit, but for Hamada it's not going to make too much difference. He knows he's down and out, and he's got 3 races left for this weekend, though 3 races left for the season to be able to bounce back.
Yes, one by one though, each of these riders are going to be ruled out of championship contention, because it's Furusato who looks as though he's well on his way towards the series lead. Our lead trio just jostling for position there, and it's Hongo, who was the race leader at the start of the previous sector, who's missed out there. I think missed the corner completely, frankly, just went to the outside line and got picked off. So Sharil, I think that was coming through, and Furusato's also up there now in the top position. Sharil then recovers your race lead. It's Furusato now on his case, and the big 2 from the last couple of races last time out in Qatar look like they're going to go nose to tail once again this time for the first ever race here in Indonesia.
Yeah, we saw Carter Thompson running wide there as well, losing a couple of spots on the number 6 machine. Thompson, he's been mentored by Damien Cudlin as well back in Australia, and a rider that has been highly regarded in the Aussie circles for the last couple of years, but obviously COVID over the course of the last 2 years has meant that it's been a fairly curtailed start to his international career, but good to see him able to get out here in the Asia Talent Cup for a full season and learn from the experiences. You can see at the front of the field though, Sharil's done a good job in these opening couple of laps. He's kept his nose clean, kept out of trouble, and he's got Furusato just behind him now, and certainly what we've seen through the course of this year is they'll look to try and break away this track is one that you could theoretically break away from him on a Talent Cup bike, because there are some sections of the track where you will be able to take an advantage if you avoid getting yourself into a battle with the riders around you.
Yes, and of course the longest straight on the circuit, just over 500 metres in length, so it doesn't facilitate that kind of slipstream train in the same way as some of the other venues that you might be used to seeing in the Asia Talent Cup. It's Shiril who leads, but Furusato now right on his tail, so that 0.2 of a second, that 1/4 of a second advantage from the start of this lap 3 has already been eroded, and Furusato already thinking about making a move, and he's going to go all the way around the outside here of the pole sitter Daniel Shiril to hit the front. And it's Furusato, the number 15, the 16-year-old, the unbeaten man from the 2021 Asia Talent Cup, who has got the lead. And if things were to stay as they are at present, it would be a 5-point gain for Furusato. He'd move to within touching distance of the championship, because of course after tomorrow morning's race there'll only be 50 points still up for grabs Saturday afternoon and Sunday. So 50 is about the marker that Furusato will be aiming for at the end of tomorrow morning's race, when he could well take the trophy in the Asia Talent Cup.
You can see Carter Thompson there on the number 6 trying to get down the inside. This is what's interesting in the final couple of corners. You can see there one of the other riders just running well right wide there. There is going to be a number of lines you can try and attack down into these last couple of corners. I think whenever we look at the Superbike races later in the week, it's going to be a real case of that could be one of the key block passing opportunities. The Asia Talent Cup bikes, obviously very different kettle of fish, but you're going to see a lot of moves made into that section of the track, just trying to force the move almost. At the front of the field, though, Furusato able to pull out 0.7 of a second last time around on Daniel Shiril, so he is a lot faster than Shiril, but Shiril is going to be able to use that slipstream, use Furusato as a little bit of a benchmark as well. We'll see if he's able to stick with him.
Yes, we saw that Daniel Shiril couldn't defend that 1/4 of a second lead over Furusato. Taya Furusato, the championship leader. Can Furusato now defend his 1/4 of a second advantage over Daniel Shiril? He'd certainly fancy his chances on the evidence of what he's done in the opening 4 races of the Asia Talent Cup in 2021. Masaya Hongo was on the front row of this grid, doing a good job to keep up there with him. His previous best finish in the Asia Talent Cup, a 7th place in Qatar 2020, and 2 9th positions in 2021.
Yeah, we're just seeing that number 5 is the rider on the move in this. That's Miyai as well, down there as well, and he's been able to pick off a couple of riders in the last couple of laps, and it looks like down in towards turn 10 he was trying to get down the inside as well, so keep an eye on the number 5.
Yes, Gun Mie, a podium finisher in race 1 of the Qatar Grand Prix, and also race 1 of the Doha Grand Prix. The 15-year-old currently 5th position in this race, and the group beginning to fracture now, or the groups beginning to fracture, as you can see. We've got 6 riders at the head of the field, all separated by a second. Then we've got 2 riders rather isolated, 0.7 of a second back, including Deo, who we picked up running wide at the end of lap number 3, and he's also with Ferdaus out on the circuit. Herjan Ferdaus, the number 10, who started down in 10th on the grid, who's now made his way up into 7th position. From 9th position down is a completely separate race. Best part of 5 seconds, in fact now 5.5 seconds from 9th position down. They're all setting personal best laps to try and make back lost time, but that's going to be tough to do. Back with the leaders, lap 5 of 16, new fastest lap of the race, and it's from the number 17, Masaya Hongo, doing a good job there to get on terms with Shiril and Furusato. We've got a 3-rider group at the head of the field, and then a little bit of daylight now opening to 4th position down.
Yeah, they're breaking away in that top 3. They've got a little bit more speed. That's why it's really important for Gunmia to be able to close that gap in the number 5 as well. He's been able to clear Thompson, clear Denish as well, so he wants to try and make sure he's able to latch on to the front, make this a 4-rider group at the front of the field. He's bringing those other riders with him as well.
Yeah, so your race leaders flashing through. Daniel Shiril thinking about a move there on the current race leader, Taya Furusato. Then it's Hongo, Mie, Thompson and Denish completing your top 6 as they stand. 7th and 8th don't look like changing, to be perfectly honest. There's 2 seconds ahead of them, and there's 3.5 seconds now behind them to Aditama, who's best of the rest in P9. Furusato, though, doing as he's done throughout 2021, controlling this race from the front.
Yeah, I was down chatting to a few of the Asia Talent Cup personnel, and I was asking them, what Furasada's like, and the one thing a few people said to me was he's the real deal, and you can see in this race he's done a good job from the second row of the grid, hit the front nice and early, and he's been able to do a really good job with that in these early stages.
So your race leader pulling away out in front, or attempting to, and we've got Hurley and Dandy there who has gone down, and that looks like being in the second sector of lap number 4.
Yeah, it looks like it's down at turn 7 just before you come to those fast right-left sequence in the middle of the lap, but at the front of the field we've seen Furasada still coming under pressure from Daniel Sharil, but Sharil hasn't gotten close enough to try and make an attack on him at this stage.
Yes, we saw the top 6, or we said that the top 6 had pulled away and made their own little group, but also that the top 3 had fractured ever so slightly from the other 3 directly behind them. That's not the case anymore. They've all grouped back together again, 3/4 of a second covering them, and that's mainly because Mie has been able to pick up the pace last time around, a couple of tenths of a second faster than Sharil, a few tenths of a second faster than Furusato, who is still your race leader, who is making ground in the middle sectors of the lap, but who's losing it again through the final sector and the first sector of each lap, and that's why Daniel Sharil is right on his tail once again. Mie, the fastest man around on lap 5, now ducks to the inside, he's going to pass 2 in 1 move. Furusato realises late that he's there, has to stand the bike back up before coming across to complete the apex, and then Mie aggressively moves across the path of his fellow countrymen to defend that race lead. So some good work there from the number 5.
Yeah, and for Mie, he started the year with a 4th and a 5th in Qatar as well, and obviously enough for him. He's trying to make sure he can finish the season strong here in the Asian Talent Cup. That's a good move from him. We saw him set a fastest lap last time around. He's done really well to bridge the gaps between that leading group over the course of this race. Anytime it looked like the leading 3 were stretching a little bit of a lead, he was able to close right up on them.
As we can see here, Azrian Deo, who we noticed running wide earlier on from the lead group, so it's a separate fight this for 7th position, and we have seen Herjan Ferdaus defending that P7 throughout this race. Frankly, Deo's been on his tail for the last couple of laps around. We complete lap 6, and it's Furusato has recovered the lead from Mie in 2nd position. Mie, though, we saw him not shy of passing his fellow Japanese youngster last time around, and he may well get the elbows out again to challenge down the inside and to try and make a pass here. Sharil is sticking with them. He's in P3.
Yeah, Sharil got a good run down that start-finish straight to try and get close in the run into turn 1, but certainly for Mie, it looks like through the next section, this is where he was really strong last time around. We'll see if he's able to do the same on this lap, try and attack down in towards turn 10. We saw he was really late in the brakes into 10, caught the race leader Furusato by surprise, was able to overtake both Sharil and Furusato that time around. We'll see if he's close enough this time to try and take the lead.
Danish a little bit wide on the curbs there, and Thompson and Honga attempting to capitalise to make their way through. Less than 6/10 of a second now covering your lead sextet as we make our way back down in towards turn 10, the action hotspot from a lap ago. Still with Furusato, your lead rider. This is the fight further back down the field from 9th position down, and a couple of Indonesian riders in this group as well.
Yeah, and certainly we've got a lot of Indonesians in the field. We've got 5 or 6 riders from the home country here in this weekend's running, and we have seen quite a few Indonesians able to have good performances in the Asian Talent Cup over the years, and in this group you have to look at the likes of Buapa as well on that number 22 machine. Just lost a couple of spots there, but he's actually looked pretty impressive at times through this season.
Yes, a couple of them making their Asian Talent Cup debuts this weekend as well. Raycat Fadilla, who had a minor fall. He was pushing on in qualifying a week ago, but did exceptionally well to take 9th position on the grid on his debut. And Raycat Fadilla, who currently sits in 10th position in this race. We recover the leaders now. Furusato out in front again. He's been able to break a 1/4 of a second. Can he defend it this time? It's Mie this time around who holds 2nd position, then Danish, Thompson. Sharil's dropped all the way to 6th position. I think we're going to see what happens here.
Yeah, keep an eye on the number 21, just runs wide through those last couple of corners. You can see fairly high curves there on the entry to that corner as well, and then gets caught out just trying to get in the gas a little bit too early, and that's what costs him his chance of being in that leading group. He's dropped down 2 seconds behind the race leader, and you can see here with the race leader Furusato, he's also taken advantage of that to try and up his pace. He's down the low 1 minute 45s, which is pretty much about as fast as we've seen from him all the way through this race, and that's why we're seeing the leading group start to really fracture out.
And that's why we're seeing the live championship standings as well, because if Sherrill were to finish down in 6th position, Furusato could potentially extend his lead to 48 points. Might be about to gain a position here because we've seen Thompson running wide. Hongo moves in front of him into 4th position. Sherrill with an opportunity. This is where we find out what Daniel Sherrill is able to do without that toe from Furusato, because if he gets in front of the 2 riders directly in his path here, he's going to have something like a second to cover to 3rd position.
Yeah, still going to have a bit of ground to make up in that position, and that looks like well, another rider's gone down. It looks like it's down at turn 10, and we've seen a bit of action down there all the way through the running so far.
I think that's to Timon, who has gone down on lap 8 of 16. So the Thai rider who was on the fringes of the points, who was in that 5-way battle, and we're going to see the incident perhaps here, and it's going to be 2 riders involved. That's a straightforward situation of Timon, who has gone down and collected Turaki Buapa, I think that is, who was alongside him, and he has now remounted to continue on in the race, but clearly out of contention when you're in a pack race like that one. And that group has now become a 6-rider group instead of the 8 or so who were all involved.
Yeah, it is starting to split up a little bit, and the reason for that is you've got to try and make those attacks, and you can see there for both of those riders on the run down into 10. For Buapa, he was at least able to get himself remounted, get back out there, but for Tom Timon, he's obviously out of this race. It looks like the stewards are going to investigate that incident as well. It did look like the number 16 of Top Timon was at fault for that, but also a bit of a racing incident there. You're going to try and make moves into turn 10.
Yes, it does look as though that's the passing place of choice for these Asia Talent Cup riders, and Wacharan Timon, the 18-year-old from Thailand, left Qatar with a couple of points to his name. Looks set for his best result here today, fighting in that 8-rider group, and unfortunately it's all come to nothing with an incident there also involving Buapa. Back to the front of the field, Furusato still leads it. It's Mie in 2nd position, Daniel Sherrill fighting his way through, I think now up into 3rd position, coming through on Denish. On the inside of him there you can see the number 13, that's Denish on the outside, Sherrill the number 21 making his way through, and Carter Thompson sticking with them, as is Hongo. So now this is 4 riders in contention for a podium position. We've been in this situation before where the top 2 have been able to break away in the Asia Talent Cup. It's 0.6 of a second now, the gap to bridge for Daniel Sherrill. A new personal best for Sherrill last time around. He's just come across the line. That's Hongo who's gone down, coming off the final turn. So Hongo, who was one of the riders in the 4 riders, the quartet chasing 3rd position, he's gone down spectacularly there, coming off the final turn.
Yeah, looks like a bit of gravel pushed onto the track as well in the exit there, the last corner, but that's a shame for Hongo. But we've seen that obviously in that second part of the group, the riders have to push on because they're seeing it start to split out, and yeah, he just runs out onto the green paint, and there is that bit of a kick off the curb there for him. You can see there the
level of the curb certainly different to the level of the track and the asphalt surface around the curb. I was saying earlier on, Steve, when we were watching free practice in Superbikes, we saw Jonathan Ray at one point come down off a curb and get all unsettled by it. These curbs do seem to be particularly high here in Indonesia. This is a new venue, and we're talking about smoothing out the circuit, but it's not smooth offline, that's for sure. That'll stop them from abusing the green paint, that's it.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to be exceeding track limits if that's the penalty, and Hongo just caught out by that. But those riders in that second part of the lead group, they do need to push on, otherwise they're not going to be able to catch up to the 2 race leaders. It does look like at this stage, so Furusato and Mia have that enough of an edge. In 3rd position, Daniel Sherrill, he's trying to catch that, but he's got about a second to make up.
He did make up 0.4 of a second last time around on Furusato, the race leader. That was on lap number 9 with a new personal best from Daniel Sherrill, the number 21. You can just see coming into the background of that shot there, he's leaving the 2 riders directly behind him further adrift. Denish and Thompson don't look to be able to live with him. He's actually managed to make a gap of half a second on this lap around to the riders behind him, and another new personal best lap from Daniel Sherrill, and having dropped back to 6th position at one stage after a minor error that cost him 2 seconds to the leader, he's now only 16 tenths of a second behind Furusato out in front. Lap 11 of 16. There is still time for Shiril really to make this a three-rider fight for those podium places.
And it's where it's really important for Furusato to get his head down as well, because we've seen they stretch out a little bit of a lead over the number 5 of Miyai as well at around about 3/10 of a second. So he is trying to open up a bit of a gap, but he'll also know that Daniel Shiril is that rider on the charge, and Shiril's done a really good job to set his fastest lap, close again within a couple of tenths of a second of second position.
Yes, and Mia doing a good job really to stick with the leader Furusato, as we say, and Shiril an exceptional job to close back in on him. Here is Fadila Aditama, who we were talking about earlier on, the man who'll be taking his place in the Rookies Cup for 2022. He's only had one race finish so far this season, and that was race 1 of the Doha Grand Prix. Came home in 8th position, and Aditama up in P6 here today. That, frankly, is the best he can hope for, unless there's further drama up in those top 5 positions, because we've got a trio at the front separated by just 6/10 of a second. Shiril is right with them now, and within striking distance of making a pass on Mie for second position here. Still Furusato leading. Then we've got a second to Carter Thompson in P4 and Denish in P5, and behind them 9 seconds to Aditama and Fadila, a couple of Indonesian riders there scrapping it out for P6. Slight mistake there from Shiril. That's given a bit of breathing room to Mie in P2.
Yeah, he is going to be able to pick up the slipstream down the start-finish straight though and close that gap a little bit, but at the front of the field we're seeing Furusato again in those low 1:minute 45s, but the fastest rider in the group is still Daniel Shiril, even with that mistake at the end of the lap.
So Shiril closing back down on Mie and Furusato, as through on the inside comes Denish, Hakim Denish coming through for 4th position on Carter Thompson, but unless something dramatic happens among those top 3, which is entirely possible in the closing stages, then it does look as though they're only scrapping for P4. They're making entertainment of it, that's for sure. Thompson and Denish scrapping and swapping.
Yeah, and you can see Thompson there in number 6 machine just making sure he was able to hold on to that 4th position. We've seen him have good results so far this year, 3 top 5s in the opening 2 rounds of the year in Qatar, so he's been adapting well to an Asian Talent Cup bike, running inside the top 5 again in this race, wants to come out in that battle, on top of that battle with Denish.
Yes, and meanwhile, up at the head of the field, it is Daniel Shiril, who knows that this is crucial in the context of the championship for him. Needs to get as many points off Furusato as he possibly can. Furusato, of course, with that 41-point lead coming into this race. So to keep things as best as possible within his own hand, Shiril needs to be taking victories and needs to see Furusato finishing a little bit further down the order. We're only at the halfway mark of the 2021 Asia Talent Cup. 4 races still remaining, including this one, of course, but further back it is as tight as anything, from 2nd down to 6th in the series standings, only 13 points between them, so anything that happens to the front runners in the championship, and that makes a major impression. We said that earlier on with Kanta Hamada going down, sitting 5th in the standings, and he is going to lose out here to the other riders around him in terms of points. Back to the front then, and it's Furusato who's leading. He looks to have consolidated his advantage on this latest lap around. A new personal best lap, that's why, to 1:44.922, and he stretches 4/10 out over Mie, which means that Shiril has got to go. He needs to leave Mie behind him, and he's got to stick with Furusato if he's to have hopes in the remainder of this race.
Yeah, nice clean move there by Shiril to take 2nd spot in the run into turn 1, and now the key thing for him is to be able to make sure he's close enough to try and attack into turn 10. We saw that Mie was the rider that was able to attack into turn 10 earlier on. Shiril, for all the time he spent behind Furusato, we didn't really see him try and make a move on him.
Yes, the gap from 3rd to 4th last time around was extended by 1.5 seconds. So Carter Thompson and also Hakim Denish, there's no way that they're going to get back into actual podium contention from here. 1:46.5 and a 1:46.8 respectively, compared to that 44.9 from the race leader Furusato. Shiril and Mie have both responded on lap 13, and Furusato stands up, has a good look over his shoulder just to check how many people are in this group, and I can tell you that unless one of these 3 riders goes down, these are going to be your podium trio. The question is, in what order?
Yeah, for Furusato, that's another time we've seen him have that big look over his shoulder. He's not afraid of checking to see who's around him, and he's not trying to just keep his head down and focusing on his lap times. He wants to know what's happening around him. That shows he's probably got a little bit of pace in hand as well for these final 3.5 laps.
Yes, the top 5 in this race are all in the top 6 positions in the championship. Hamada, who crashed at turn 10 earlier on in this race, is is the odd one out, and the top three in points terms, a tie at the moment between Gunmir and Hakim Denish, settled by the best result, which was Gunmir's second place in the opening race of this campaign, which means that the top three in the championship standings are the top three on track at present, and they are in the order they are in the championship, which would mean that the gaps between them all would continue to extend. 3 laps to go, and Sharil losing ground again around the first turn of lap 14 with a bit of an error.
Yeah, Furasad is trying to turn the wick up now as well at this stage, and last time around he was able to lose a couple of tenths of a second with that look over his shoulder to see who was around him, but he's still got a good amount of pace in hand. We'll see if he's able to really try and stretch out his lead now in this lap. He looks like he's got his head down, wants to try and really be aggressive and open up a bit of a gap. It was only 2 tenths of a second when they came across the line. It's up to half a second now.
Yes, as you can see on the screen, the gap to the leader, 8 tenths of a second for Mie in third position, and it could very well turn into a duel between Sharil and Mie here for second place, because Furasato really kicking on. Sharil responding around that latest sector through the twistier stuff and in towards turn 10. They're making their way now, the leaders, through turns 11 and 12. It switches on to the final sector as we switch back to the battles further down the order. Dale, well, they've switched at just the right time. Dale making a lunge down the inside. I think that might have been of Aditama, and both of them have gone down and into the gravel trap. And Deo looks, Aditama looks none too pleased with Deo there after that ambitious move down the inside. Another incident at turn 10.
Yeah, and for Aditama, that was out of 6th position and on course for a really good performance here at his home round. See Carter Thompson then making the move through the fast right-handers at the end of the lap.
And this will be for 4th position as Hakim Denish loses a place. Carter Thompson then through back into P4. These two have been swapping and changing. I suspect that if we'd been watching just that battle, we would have seen another 100 of those overtaking manoeuvres. We're now on to the penultimate lap of the race for the leaders. For Osato, 4 tenths of a second up ahead of Sharil, who's got in front of Mie and made a 3 tenths of a second advantage.
Yeah, and you can see there Aditama there on the number 3 going down, and again, like you said, Alex, another move into turn 10. It's easy to be a little bit ambitious on the run into there, and just to have an instant like that at the front of the field, though, Furasad is doing a good job now just to keep that lead at around about 3 tenths of a second. Sharil's digging in. Last time around in the final sector, he did close back to within a couple of tenths of a second, but it's really difficult to try and close that gap then in Furasada.
And haven't we seen that already in 2021 in the Asia Talent Cup? Furasato happy to lead at the front of the field, happy to try and break his rivals for pure pace, not too worried about the slipstream advantage that's given to the riders behind him, because he knows he's got an inherent pace advantage. He wasn't able to show it in qualifying here a week ago, but thanks to the free practice sessions as well earlier on today, he's clearly got to grips with this 4.3 kilometre Mandalika International Circuit, our first ever race here around this venue, and it's in the Asia Talent Cup. But it looks like the one thing that hasn't changed is our race leader. Furasato out in front, looking set to extend his series lead.
Yeah, Sharil's doing a good job in this lap, though, holding with him, and he's a tenth of a second faster so far, but the clock is winding down all the way. It's really important now for Sharil to get close enough to try and attack into turn 1.
It's looking as though it's going to be the same top 2 for 3 races in a row. We had this finishing order between Furasato and Daniel Sharil in both of the races at the Doha Grand Prix. Furasato has had only 1 finishing position in 2021, and they've all been worth 25 championship points. Sharil then 2 tenths further down, and we've got a fall, and is that Denish? Yes, it is. It's Denish who's gone down in his fight with Carter Thompson. Last time over the line, he was in front, I think, of Thompson in the battle for 4th place. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah, keep an eye in the background, and you're going to see for Denish, just tries to be a little bit aggressive through that last corner, trying to make sure he's able to close up on Carter Thompson to set up a move on the final lap, and just asks a bit too much of his Honda machinery.
Yes, now look at the leaders, a tenth of a second between them on this final lap. Sharil has managed to find something a little bit special, a little bit extra. He was stuck down in 6th position at one stage. He's fought his way through onto the tail of Furasato. Furasato still unbeaten in 2021. Daniel Sharil might be about to have a go at stopping that from being the scenario. They make their way now in towards turn 10. This has been an action hotspot all race long. It's been an incident hotspot all race long as well. Furasato there defending to the inside. It's going to be single file through here, turns 11 and 12 in towards the final sector. sector. Sherrill chooses now down the inside into 12, catches Furusato by surprise. Opportunity for Furusato on the number 15 here to make a recovery in similar fashion as they come off 13 and 14. What about a lunge into turn 16, the slowest corner on the circuit? Daniel Sherrill looking for his first race victory since his return to the Asia Talent Cup. He was last a winner in Thailand 2018. He's fighting for the lead here against Furusato, the championship leader, who goes soaring around the outside bravely. 2 turns to go, 16 and now 17. They come through the left-hander, and it's Furusato who once again leads. It is Taiyo Furusato of Japan to make it 5 wins out of 5, and the inaugural race victory at the Mandalika International Circuit goes to Taiyo Furusato. The first time this season that he's been off pole position, the first time he's ever been off pole position in the Asia Talent Cup, but he doesn't disappoint. He comes through to the front. He leads almost throughout. Daniel Sherrill was disappointed with that, shaking his head in his hands practically as he made his way back in towards turn number 1. Sherrill second best, but only by 0.2 of a second. That's 3 races in a row now where he's tried to give Furusato a real run for his money. Gunmie with his 3rd podium finish of this 2021 campaign, 2nd time that he's finished in P3. Carter Thompson, an isolated 4th position in the end after late drama for Hakim Denish. So it does look as though we're only going to have 14 finishers to this race. I think I cursed it earlier on when I said that there hadn't been that many retirements in the Asia Talent Cup in 2021. And that means that Fadilla on the Raycat Fadilla making his debut in the Asia Talent Cup is a strong performer, the Indonesian rider, with P5 ahead of Herjan Ferdaus, who takes P6, and Sherrill, Pertamina, Fujita and Buapa eventually remounting to come home for 10th place. So a bit of wacky races at times, but the one thing that was, as we might have anticipated before the lights went out, a fine victory that from Furusato, bold around that final sector in particular.
Yeah, Furusato coming through from the 2nd row of the grid, and he'll have to do the same again in tomorrow morning's race, but certainly for him, he was able to show once again the talent that he has on offer. That last corner move that he made through the long right-handers, the ever-decreasing radius right-handers, it really was impressive. That took your breath away, really, and Daniel Sherrill did nothing wrong during the course of that race. He holds the right line on the run into those right-handers. You saw him whenever he came across the line, he had to look up to the skies and just think, what do I have to do to win a race?
And aggressive when he needed to be as well through turn 12. I wasn't expecting really to see a move there, but Sherrill had got close enough to try and strike and capitalised on the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think for Sherrill, put everything he could onto this and left it all on the track, and we saw that he was able to set fast lap times to bridge himself back up to the 2 race leaders. But ultimately in that final lap, Furusato just had that little bit in hand, and a really daring move by Furusato. But that's why he's the rider that's already guaranteed to be on the World Championship grid next year.
This is one of the men of the moment as far as the Indonesian spectators here this weekend will be concerned. Raycat Fadilla, the number 24, on his Asia Talent Cup debut, and coming home for 5th position. A couple of Indonesian riders scoring decent points here today, and every reason then for the spectators to be satisfied, and hopefully their riders will come back for more here over the course of this weekend. We've still got 3 races to go in the Asia Talent Cup for 2021, and indeed for this Indonesian round. We've got effectively 2 rounds this weekend, round 3 and round 4 of the Asia Talent Cup, with 4 races, as I say, in total. Looks as though Daniel Sherrill is paddling his way back towards the podium area. We will have celebrations with our top trio. But Furusato, as far as he's concerned, another race victory. It's only 5 points gained, damage limitation for Daniel Sherrill. But if he is a race winner here tomorrow, that will be enough to seal the Asia Talent Cup.
Yeah, and certainly you wouldn't bet against it for Furusato with the form that he's been in, and just the manner in which he was able to take that race victory, and could well be the latest Asia Talent Cup champion as early as the opening race of tomorrow. And certainly from that point on, it's going to be a very different weekend as well, because we also have a qualifying session tomorrow morning, and that'll set the grid then for races 3 and 4 this weekend. Yes,
we're watching a future Grand Prix rider, and don't we know it, the way he carried himself in that race.
Yeah, he looked like he had it in hand all the way through, and that last lap move, to be that cool and calm after being stuffed down the inside through the fast corners in the middle of the lap, that really does show that he's able to keep a cool head, and that's what you want to see in the Asia Talent Cup from these riders. This is one of the big talent pools that's available to the Grand Prix paddock and to the Superbike World Championship as well, and certainly on their road to MotoGP, he's been able to show just how good he can be. Even if you think back to last year, he actually led both races in Qatar on the last lap, but got caught out. He hasn't been caught out this year.
Plenty of character being shown by Daniel Sharil as well today. The number 21 coming home for another second position. That's 3 in a row for him. The wait continues for a first victory since 2018. But as I say, plenty of character, and that's not surprising given his remarkable story, as I mentioned at the top of the programme.
Yeah, really has been impressive to see the recovery that he's made from those injuries in Sepang a few years ago, and we saw in this race again that he's got the heart to try and keep himself in it and dig deep to try and close the gap to those race leaders. He rode a really good race, just ultimately one other rider rode a slightly better race.
Yes, his right leg completely shattered in that incident, to the extent that initially the prognosis was that it may well be an amputation. I understand stem cell surgery and so on was used to get Daniel Sharil rehabilitated. The fact that he's back on a bike at all is pretty incredible. 3 podiums in a row though, and that is his 8th podium in the Asia Talent Cup by my reckoning, and that really does take some doing. He really has done a brilliant job, and so far this weekend been among the stars of the show. The top 3 in that race are also the top 3 in your Asia Talent Cup series as a whole. As far as points are concerned, Furusato now leads it by 46 over Mie, who takes a clear third now. He is 52 back from Furusato, so still could theoretically have a role to play in the Asia Talent Cup as far as title winning is concerned, but it's going to really take a derailment here for Furusato over the remaining 2 days of competition.
Yeah, it's hard to see it considering the form he's been in all the way through this season so far, and we'll wait and see how tomorrow goes for him, but certainly Furusato is going to want to get that championship run as early as possible, and that'll be race 2 tomorrow.
On the evidence of what we've just seen, if anyone's going to stop Furusato over the course of this weekend, it will be Sharil, and it would be, to be perfectly honest, fitting to see him get a race victory at some stage in this 2021 Asia Talent Cup.
Well, you can't bet against Gun Maye as well, because he was very impressive in this race. We saw him able to set a series of fastest laps and come through that leading pack in the early stages, so he's going to feel that he's got a chance of being able to close up and really challenge tomorrow as well. But certainly Daniel Sharil looks like, from that pole position in particular, that he's going to have a good chance of being able to try and take the fight once again to Furusato.
Yes, Gunmie taking the 3rd position in race 1. Just lacked a little bit of pace in the closing stages, dropped off on those last 2.5 laps and eventually finishes 1.4 seconds down. But he was able to take the fight to Furusato until, well, the first 13, 14 laps, frankly, on the number 5, and we saw him fighting his way through at one stage to hit the front as well. Tried to unsettle Furusato, but he is a cool head, is the youngster, just 16 years of age, your race winner. Second place going the way of Daniel Sharil, and your race winner, the number 15 of Tayo Furusato. Second place, and the trophy being given to Daniel Sharil. It's a 3rd second place in a row, so he's only lost 15 points over the last 3 races. The majority of the deficit comes from the opening 2 of the season, and Daniel Sharil, number 21, finished in 7th position and 6th in the opening 2 rounds of his return, his comeback event, effectively, the Qatar Grand Prix. Gap then is 46 points. Furusato, once again, your race winner.
Congratulations then to our top 3. If we can ask the top 3 now.
Your race 1 winner is Tayo Furusato, just as he has been in the opening 4 races of this 2021 campaign. We're into the second half now of the Asia Talent Cup season, with 3 races still to go. And as far as those point standings are concerned, well, everyone else is getting perilously close to being involved in a fight for second position, because Furusato is only one more race victory away from sealing the Asia Talent Cup.
Yeah, and it's in his hands for the opening race of tomorrow as well, so we'll see if he's able to get across the line and claim that championship.
Tayo Furusato is your race 1 winner here at the Indonesian round 3 of the 2021 Asia Talent Cup. 0.2 of a second his winning margin over Daniel Shireel after a bold last lap outside overtake through turns 15 and 16 to recover the lead from Shireel, who'd fought his way through. Gunmie taking best of the rest, P3 for him. He was at one stage a race leader. Only 14 finishers. Good to see some Indonesian riders in the points here today as well, including Raykat Fadila on his debut in the Asia Talent Cup, coming home for P5, and he looked very satisfied with that, and I think it was almost as if he had earned a podium here today. Plenty of retirements, as we said, 7 of them in total, and the most relevant in the context of the championship was Hakim Danish. Now, Danish, who was a podium finisher in 3 of the opening 4 races of this season, was tied with Gunmie in the championship standings for 3rd overall, and he is the rider who drops back as Carter Thompson makes progress into 4th in the standings. Your top 3 in race 1 here at the Indonesian round, your top 3 in the championship. Furusato leading the way on 125.46 up on Daniel Shireel, 2nd on 79, and Gunmie 3rd on 73. A victory here tomorrow for Tayo Furusato, and he will have claimed the Asia Talent Cup for 2021. But Shireel and Mie, who were on the podium today, will hope to have another go. And remember, again, Tayo Furusato will have to start from 6th position for race 2 tomorrow morning. A separate qualifying will take place tomorrow morning as well that will determine the grid for races 3 and 4 of the weekend, which is round 4 of the 2021 Asia Talent Cup. Still here in Indonesia, of course, 4 races in 4 days. Race 2 then from the Indonesian round of the Asia Talent Cup for 2021 gets underway tomorrow at midday. In the meanwhile, we'll leave you with the best of Friday's action, the first ever race from the Mandalika International Circuit.